In now, founder and executive director of the National Security Institute at the Antonin Scalia Law School at George Mason University, Jamil Jaffer. Jamil, great to see you again. Such an important day, such a historic day. This war has raged on at this point now just over 2 years. Would this have happened? Would we have been able to get here without President Trump?
Well, Nicole, it's hard to know. I mean, given the role that President Trump and his team, Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, have played in this successful, what appears to be a successful end to this war, it's hard to see it happening without those three personalities, the way they act, the way they operate. President Trump essentially forcing Prime Minister Netanyahu to the table, forcing Hamas to the table to do this final handover. I think it's hard to imagine that's going to happen without those players involved.
And I know we're talking about legacy here, legacy of President Trump. He technically missed the deadline for this year's Nobel Peace Prize. He was actively and still is actively campaigning for it. Do you think he gets it next year? Should he get it next year?
Well, look, I mean, if in fact this results in a lasting peace, this end of this 2-year war that's been brutal on all sides, and if it results in a long-term peace in the region, security for Israel, a land for the Palestinians, that is earth-shaking, and I think he probably does deserve the Nobel Peace Prize, particularly if that comes also with the recognition of Israel by the remaining Arab states, including Saudi Arabia. So if that happens, I mean, I think you can very well see it. And in fact, he will today, Nicole, receive the Israeli Presidential Medal of Freedom from Israeli President Herzog. And then he'll go to Egypt, where he'll receive the Order of the Nile, both the highest civilian honors in both those countries.
And talk about, Jamil, what this means for President Trump's legacy. And I ask that with a two-part question. What does it mean for his legacy if this ceasefire and peace deal holds, if it is successful? And what does it mean for his legacy if it is not successful?
Well, look, Nicole, we're less than a year into the Trump administration, so he's got 3 more years to either build a legacy, hurt it, harm it, make it better. So we'll see. But at least for this year, for now, if this remains the chief achievement of his term in office, as both terms in office, and if it's successful, then it could be huge, obviously. At the same time, there's a lot that could change. This war could restart at any moment. You heard Prime Minister Netanyahu himself say the military effort is not over. At the same time, almost identically, that President Trump is on Air Force One saying the war is over. So that's a little bit of a difference between those two. They're actually in a car together now. We see that picture down on the left where they're proceeding together from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem in the president's limousine. He broke from protocol there, by the way, inviting Prime Minister Netanyahu into his car to join him for that ride, that 40-minute ride to Jerusalem.
And what is imperative? What else needs to happen for this to be successful from your perspective?
Well, that's the big question.
Yeah.
So, sorry, Nicole. So, we have to obviously see the handover of the other 28, bodies of hostages that have been killed in Gaza. And then beyond that, you have to see Hamas hand over its weapons, leave government power, the Palestinian Authority get reformed, come into power, and ultimately the Israeli forces withdraw near the border where they'll have a small security zone. And then the question is, what happens with the security of Israel? What happens with the land for the Palestinians? What happens with the rebuilding of Gaza? And what happens to the recognition of Israel by the remaining Arab states like Saudi Arabia? So a lot yet to come, Nicole.
A lot yet to come. Jamil Jaffer, thank you so much for your time. Very early this morning. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.